kitchen was cloaked in an oppressive silence, the kind that makes the hair on your neck stand on end. Dim light from a flickering overhead bulb cast ghostly shadows that stretched across the cold, empty surfaces. On the battered wooden table, a shattered debit card lay in jagged pieces, each fragment catching the faint light with menacing glee. The broken plastic seemed to hum with a dark energy, whispering secrets from some forgotten tragedy. Next to the wreckage, a smartphone lay face down, its screen flickering erratically with an unsettling glow. A notification flashed on the screen in glowing red glitching letters that read, "You shouldn't have done." The words pulsed ominously like a heartbeat as the screen flickered in and out of. An unnatural silence filled the room, broken only by the faint hum of the malfunction. Shadows grew longer, stretching across the table, twisting and contorting in a silent dance of menace. The entire scene embodied a horror finance aesthetic, modern, bleak, and hauntingly metaphoric. No faces were present, only the vague shapes cast by dim light and the creeping A thick sense of dread seeped into the air, making it hard to breathe. The jagged pieces of the debit card seemed to radiate a cold, malevolent presence, as if they held a sinister. The faint glow from the phone's screen seemed to pulse like a sluggish heartbeat, slow but persistent. In that haunted, quiet time itself felt suspended, held hostage by something unseen. The notification's message sounded like a warning from some dark force, chilling and unavoidable. Perhaps unseen eyes watched from the darkness, waiting for the perfect moment to strike a. Shadows stretched their elongated, grasping fingers across the room as if eager to snatch the unwary. Fleeting glimpses of movement flickered in the shadows, gone before they could be fully understood. A subtle crackle from the overhead bulb broke the silence, uneasy and discordant like a sinister whisper. The broken fragments of the debit card reflected the weak light in sharp, jagged angles that seemed unnatural. Those tiny shards seemed to carry the weight of some terrible crime severed from their original purpose. Deep within the darkness, a faint whisper could be heard, almost inaudible, but filled with Every shadow appeared to hold a secret silent and waiting to be revealed or silenced forever. The ominous glow from the phone cast strange, dark shapes on the walls, resembling harbingers of doom. A sense of helplessness grew with every passing second, as if the room itself were holding its breath. The shadows seemed to deepen, forming spectral figures that danced silently on the edges of perception. In this haunted kitchen, the line between reality and nightmare blurred, indistinguishable, and the unsettling glow from the device threatened to swallow the entire room in an eternal dark. Scatterings of plastic shards looked like remnants of broken promises and lost trust, pieces of something shattered beyond repair. Every dark shape seemed to whisper secrets, secrets too terrible to speak aloud, secrets that could destroy anyone who dared listen. The silence grew thicker, heavier, pressing down like a suffocating weight on anyone unfortunate enough to remain. The red glitching text on the phone flickered again, ominous and alive with a strange. A shiver ran down the spine of anyone who saw it, sensing an unseen malevolence lurking just beyond the veil of darkness. The room felt alive, charged with a dark energy that grew more palpable with each passing moment. Shadows morphed into ghostly figures that danced just beyond the edge of vision, silent and foreboding. Every object seemed infused with some sinister presence waiting patiently in the shadow. The threatening glow from the device seemed to threaten to swallow the space whole like a portal to another dark. Broken shards of plastic shimmered with a cold light, fragments of something violently severed from its purpose. Every shadow held an unspoken secret, a story of regret, loss, or unseen horror. Deep within, a lingering sensation of something terrible just happened, refused to fade, thick and oppressive. The scene was frozen in a moment of midnight dread, a perfect snapshot of impending doom. Yet through the thick silence, a faint whisper drifted, barely audible, yet undeniably present. It carried an echo of stories, long-buried stories that refused to stay hidden forever. In that haunted room, the boundary between the living and the dead had been forever. Below it all, the glowing screen of the phone remained ominously bright, a warning to the In the dim glow of a flickering street lamp, a hand clenched tightly around 6 shattered debit card fragments appeared, edges jagged and unsettling shadows cast across its bone-white surface. The scene was haunting every shard, reflecting distorted glimpses of a dark, ominous background filled with twisted trees and creeping. A cold, anxious tension enveloped the air as the dramatic lighting accentuated the sharpness of the fragments, hinting at a story darker than it seemed at first glance. On a nearby phone screen, a transaction from a gas station labeled "Station of Reckoning" flickered faintly with static distortions, eerily jittering amidst the screen's faint static crackled and shifted, as if it were trying to whisper secrets from another realm. The dark background seemed to pulse with a supernatural energy, an aura of foreboding that grew heavier with every passing second. The hand shook slightly, trembling as if battling an unseen force trying to claim it, and the remnants of the broken card. A whispery voice echoed in the distant shadows, faint yet unmistakably calling out, "Come closer if you dare." The unsettling shadows danced around the scene, flickering like ghosts lurking just beyond the edge of sight. The phone screen continued to distort the transaction details, flickering between clarity and darkness, revealing no logical reason for their disturbing A faint spectral glow emanated from the fragments, casting an eerie light that seemed to flicker with a life of its own. A chilling breeze swept through the alley, carrying with it the scent of burnt rubber and something far more sinister. The transaction from the gas station appeared to be more than a routine payment. It was a portal, a message from another dimension. Suddenly, the fragments in the hand began to tremble and vibrate, as if responding to unseen energy swirling. A shadow loomed behind the scene, tall and indistinct, watching with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through the darkness. The static on the phone grew louder, nearly deafening, as it distorted the image of the transaction into grotesque shapes. An uneasy silence settled, broken only by the faint cracking of the fragments as they shifted in the palm of the hand. The hand tightened its grip, instinctively desperate to hold on to something real amidst the supernatural chaos. From the phone, a faint voice emerged, distorted yet recognizable. "You're part of the reckoning." The words sent a shiver down the spine, echoing an undeniable truth that sent ripples of fear through the core of the observer. Suddenly, the fragments reassembled in the hand, forming a jagged, glowing symbol pulsating with an unholy light. Ghostly whispers swirled around their voices, a chorus of voices long silenced but never forgotten. The shadows thickened, swirling into shapes that seemed to mimic faces of the past, those lost to the dark realm. The phone crackled again, displaying strange, incomprehensible symbols alongside the familiar transaction details. The dark background seemed to shift and ripple, as though reality itself was bending under supernatural stress. A sudden gust of wind snuffed out the nearby flickering street lamp, leaving the scene in pitch-black darkness. In the oppressive silence, the hand slowly withdrew, clutching the fragments like a talisman against the unknown. The phone screen suddenly went black, then flickered back on, revealing only a single word: reckoned. The atmosphere thickened as if the very air was saturated with restless spirits, eager to reclaim what was there. A faint ghostly laughter echoed somewhere in the distance, chilling and hollow, yet strangely. The transaction from the gas station now appeared to be a beacon, a calling card from the supernatural realm beyond. The broken shards hovered momentarily, then spiraled into the air, spinning faster and faster until they vanished. The shadows dissolved into nothingness, leaving behind an unsettling silence that lingered in the soul. A shadowy figure, barely perceptible, emerged from the darkness, watching silently with hollow, glowing eyes. The hand trembled once more, unsure if it had seen too much or if it was the victim of its own haunted imagination. The phone emitted a faint, eerie hum, as if it were alive with a consciousness of its own, waiting for the next. Time seemed to distort, stretching endlessly as the supernatural presence seeped deeper into reality. And in that haunted moment, it became clear that some transactions are better left unmade, for they carry consequences beyond The scene faded into a ghostly mist, leaving only a lingering sense of dread and the whisper of distant voices. Yet the memory of the broken cards and the spectral transaction remained etched in the mind, an eerie reminder of the night's dark revelation. No one knew exactly what had transpired at Station of Reckoning, but its sinister influence continued to haunt those who dared to. In a dark room, shadows danced across the walls as a person sat silently waiting on hold with Their face was hidden in the darkness, only the faint glow of a screen illuminating their feet. The phone was on speaker, amplifying their anxious breathing among the silent. Reflective black surfaces around them shimmered subtly, catching the eerie light that seemed to pulse softly. An unsettling atmosphere hung heavy in the air, thick with anticipation and unease. On the table before them, 6 fragments of a card lay scattered haphazardly under the dim flickering. The soft red glow emanated from beneath the fragments, as if they emitted their own faint heat and secrets. A faint crackle of static interrupted the waiting as the call remained disconnected, amplifying the. They reached out instinctively, fingers trembling as they hovered over the cold, fractured pieces. Each fragment caught the dim light differently, revealing jagged edges and mysterious symbols etched on their surface. A sudden low hum vibrated through the room, causing the reflections to ripple like disturbed. An eerie whisper seemed to seep from the shadows, but no one was there to hear it. The person's eyes darted nervously around the dark corners, seeking the source of the unsettling. The red glow beneath the fragments flickered uncertainly, casting strange, fleeting shadows on the wall. Their breath caught as they heard a faint, almost imperceptible voice on the line echoing through the. It was as if the voice was calling from a place beyond, ancient and full of secrets best left untouched. Suddenly, a cold chill ran down their spine, and they felt as if invisible eyes were watching them. The fragments on the table seemed to pulse softly, as if alive with a mysterious energy. They hesitated, unsure whether to disturb them further or retreat into the darkness. The atmosphere grew heavier, oppressive with the weight of the unknown. A distant whisper resonated again, almost pleading, yet filled with an unearthly warmth. They reached out cautiously and touched one of the fragments, feeling a faint warmth beneath its surface. In that moment, their screen flickered and a strange, distorted face appeared briefly before vanishing. A sense of dread flooded their senses, deepening the mystery that surrounded them. The red glow intensified, casting a sinister hue over everything with... Suddenly, the phone crackled to life with a distorted, static-laden voice whispering unintelligible words. The fragments seemed to vibrate more fiercely with each passing second, as if responding to unseen forces. They tried to speak, but their voice caught in their throat, overcome by mounting fear. The shadows grew darker, converging into indescribable shapes that seemed to move on. A cold sweat broke out as they realized that this was no ordinary call or ordinary... In that dark, haunted space, reality seemed to bend and twist with every path. The 6 fragments beckoned them, their faint heat, a sinister reminder of something ancient and powerful. Suddenly, the room was filled with an oppressive silence, broken only by the ominous hum of the unseen dark. They pulled their hand back instinctively, eyes wide with terror, knowing they had awakened something they couldn't understand. The eerie red light flickered, casting long, unnatural shadows that danced across the walls with a life of their own. Their heart pounded fiercely as the whispers grew louder, more insistent, calling them into the depths of the unknown. They knew they should hang up, escape this dark chamber of mysteries, but something held them frozen. The fragments on the table seemed to radiate an ominous heat, as if holding the secrets of ages long. A final grim whisper escaped the shadows, promising that some stories are best left un... The dark bedroom was silent except for the faint glow of a phone screen illuminating the... Outside, the night was thick and suffocating, hiding whatever lurked beyond the thin wall. A notification flashed on the phone, emitting a dull, blinking glow that seemed almost... Deep shadows in the corners danced with each flicker of the screen, creating a haunting cinematic. The quiet was broken by the sudden vibrate of the device, startling the person lying awake. On the screen, an unfamiliar bank transaction appeared, showing $14.66 with the memo, "You forgot a..." The red digits flickered erratically, glitching as if the screen itself was possessed. Floating receipts materialized out of thin air, swirling eerily in the dimly lit. A creeping sense of dread settled as the shadows seemed to draw closer, almost alive. The person hesitated, their eyes fixed on the unsettling transaction, confused and fearful. As they reached to unlock their phone again, the screen flickered wildly, distorting reality. The numbers turned crimson and glitchy, flickering between what was real and what was imagined. A digital horror aesthetic crept into the scene with static whispers echoing in the darkness. The room felt colder, as if unseen hands had reached through the shadows to grab at the fabric of their nerves. Suddenly, another notification blinked into existence, but this time with an ominous message in red, "You can't escape." The person's breath became visible in the bleak air, trembling as they stared at the screen's ghostly glow. A receipt floated down like a spectral feather, insubstantial but chilling to... With trembling fingers, they tried to dismiss the message, but the screen responded with a sinister glitch. The digital horror intensified, pixels splintering into chaotic fragments like shattered glass. Out of the corner of their eye, they saw shadows elongate and stretch toward the bed, alive and watching. A low, almost imperceptible whisper seeped from the device, whispering secrets from the abyss. The transaction remained frozen on the screen, an eternal reminder of forgotten death. The illuminated digits flickered again, glitching into an array of unsettling red stars. They tried to turn off the phone, but the power button refused to respond, as if possessed. Suddenly, the room seemed to warp the walls, dissolving into digital code and shadowy. Floating receipts multiplied, swirling around in a digital vortex that pulled at their very soul. Every shadow stared back with hollow, glowing eyes, tormenting the fragile mind trapped inside. A voice distorted and distant echoed from the device saying, "You can never leave this," in a chilling. Their heartbeat pounded in their ears as the room darkened further. The phone's glow, the only source of... The screen displayed a final message: remember the forgotten or stay forever. The person reached desperately for their phone, hoping to delete the nightmare, but the screen surged with static. The digital receipts vanished into the darkness, leaving behind an oppressive silence. Suddenly, they felt a cold breath on their neck, the shadows now almost tangible and oppressive. A sinister chuckle resonated from the device, echoing into the depths of their... The phone's display flickered one last time, revealing a red glitching number 6. The room seemed to collapse into a digital abyss, swallowing the trembling figure whole. They realized too late that some debts paid in shadows never truly fade away. And in the darkness, a faint notification blinked. You forgot about... The haunting story of the night remained etched in their memory, a digital nightmare they could never escape.